Hello and welcome back, Magic fans. You've picked the right place to be here on a Sunday afternoon because in Nice, France, we have the last quarterfinal here of our World Magic Cup. And, well, it's some big names for our feature match area. Team Italy, they are one of the most successful teams in the history of this tournament, the World Magic Cup. They are previous champions. They have made these elimination stages a number of times before, and they are up against Team China in what promises to be an absolutely fantastic quarterfinal here. Tim Willoughby and Matej Zadelkai sending you down to the feature match area for this, our last quarterfinal here at the World Magic Cup. Hello and welcome to this, the final set of quarterfinals here at our World Magic Cup. I'm Tim Willoughby, I'm joined by Matej Zadelkai, and you can see there some of the players that have been able to just put together a fantastic performance thus far. Andrea Mengucci, the team captain of Italy, he has hoisted the trophy of a World Magic Cup before, very keen to do so again, and he's put his team in a great position to do so. Just a few more rounds for them to play. Blue-green Pummeler in the hands of the Italian. Kicking things off with the Long Tusk Cub. On the other side of things for Lu Chao, it's Sultai Energy, the energy list that has access to a little bit more removal and has probably some of the more potent Long Tusk Cubs itself when it wants to. But Andrea Mengucci, his deck, if it can get to the mid-game and it can get a lot of energy, it threatens one of the most explosive kill conditions in this standard format.
Yeah, and you know what I'm really excited about is the fact that we not only get a really good player in Andrea Mengucci in our feature match, but also the fact that he's playing Green-Blue Pummeler. I want to see some pummeling going on. I want to see larger than life, cartridge of knowledge. Andrea Mengucci has it all here, and a great start for him as well here because he's on the play. And when I talked to the Chinese players, they were saying it would have been okay if we were on the play, but now that Italy is on the play, they really feel like unfavored in all the matchups because of that.
Yeah, I mean, just something as simple as the fact that Andrea Mengucci was the first person to get up to 2 energies so that he could be attacking with his Long Tusk Cub where Lu Chao was not able to. Couldn't even reasonably block, and that means that Long Tusk Cub on Mengucci's side of things are 3-3, and there's still that 2 energy to work with. And while Lu Chao does now have potentially a trump card in Winding Constrictor, he needed to find a way of generating energy right then and there. Otherwise, he had spent it all on Ether Hub before he could start pumping his Long Tusk Cub.
Yeah, Lu Chao with a little bit of mana problem, doesn't have a black mana source, but he leverages those Ether Hubs really well and gets that 2 energy necessary. And now remember, he can pop up the Long Tusk Cub to a 4/4 extended Winding Constrictor, and that gets past the Rogue Refine that Andrea Mengucci has to block. But that will generate then even more energy for Lu Chao because that Winding Constrictor, look at it, it's just so good.
Just does it all in this matchup, and it's one of those things that when you see the 1-2 punch of Winding Constrictor and Long Tusk Cub, it leaves you wondering how we've not just been playing with this synergy more for the entirety of the time it's been around in Standard, because it's been around for a while. There were some Constrictor decks when Winding Constrictor first became an option, but it wasn't until the Pro Tour got one the very last Pro Tour Ixalan, that we really saw this synergy come back to the forefront, and it's so potent when it happens, that 2-3 punch.
Yeah, so Andrea has to now fight his way through that annoying snake, at least from his perspective. He has some decent follow-ups himself, but I don't see much pummeling in his future, unfortunately.
Yeah, Andrea Mengucci, I guess one of the sacrifices to be playing Blue-Green Pummeler, you got to take something out if you're going to fit in all of these larger-than-lifes and similar. And what he loses in being blue-green is a little bit of removal. So it may be that he finds himself in all sorts of bother here. And he did not want to be the person that's on the receiving end of Blossoming Defense. That's very much a card that he's looking to use to win the game on his side of things. And here we have a Winding Constrictor plus Blossoming Defense that will likely be good enough to successfully block and kill a Rogue Refiner.
Very risky play here because, of course, Andrea Mengucci, not just he's playing Blossoming Defenses of his own, but he potentially could have had to also dive down just to protect his Refiner from dying here. But Lu Chao, with a heads-up play, wants to establish board dominance as fast as possible, and he might just get there as Andrea will just have something like a Long Tusk Cup, maybe a Green Bell Rampager as well as on his board.
And unfortunately for him, a 1-mana 3/4 is just not very exciting in terms of pure size when you compare it to Long Tusk Cub that's currently a 4/4, can very easily turn into a 6/6 or even larger without too much help from Team China here.
Yeah, and Lu Chao has plenty left in his tank with a Rogue Refiner, and I think he also has a Scarab God. Of course, it will take a little while longer to get there on this regard, and he might have even drawn a Walking Ballista, another card which interacts just so favorably with the Winding Constrictor.
Lu Chao putting together what he needs to. Currently, the life totals are in Mengucci's favor, and with the likes of Larger Than Life in his deck, even if everything else appears to be going a little bit wrong, he does have the card to be able to get back in the game from almost nowhere. That additional power and toughness and trample, meaning that the one big attack could always just be a moment away from Andrea Mengucci's deck, even if he has not drawn the namesake card.
Yeah, there's the Walking Ballista from Lu Chao. It's going to be for 4 mana, getting a 3/3 that mows down creatures when you remove one of them is already great. But for Andrea Mengucci now, he's certainly getting a little bit under the gun. The best card he could draw would be something like a Cartouche of Knowledge. So he could fly over, because you see there are no flyers on the board just yet. But still, Lu Chao now with the attacking Long Tusk Cub of his own with the Winding Constrictor, that's a big danger that's going to get out of hand very fast.
Yeah, this is a pretty ideal draw for Lu Chao here. He's been able to string together what he needs, and he still has quite a lot of cards in hand, it must be said. He's sat there with a whole host of mid to late game options, and even if he didn't have anything in hand, I would say that he has a slight advantage on this board.
Yeah, definitely. And Andrea is the one fighting from behind. Finds a Rogue Refiner. That's going to dig him further and give him a good blocker for following turns. But he really would love that Cartouche of Knowledge. And Electrostatic Pummeler wouldn't be even good here, because he's just pretty low on energy. He needs quite a bit of energy to make that happen without a larger than life. And I think he just drew a second Hashab Oasis.
Hashab Oasis, a relatively free pump spell in this blue-green Pummeler deck, does not mind having a land that simply taps a green mana, and of course, on occasion, it will end up setting up some gigantic attacks. Here, though, it's just letting him cast a Servant of the Conduit, going up to 3 energy now, plenty of mana available to him. He has got creatures on the board, and basically Lu Chao, the one thing that he needs to worry about is those last couple of cards in hand, how many of them are pump spells, and how big do those pump spells make Andrea Mengucci's creatures?
Yeah, we'll see about that once he draws something good here. But now he's casting a Servant of the Conduit, and Lu Chao is just maybe thinking about responding. He has the Walking Ballista on the battlefield, so he could maybe shoot down a creature, but declines to do so. And Andrea Mengucci doesn't have many other options outside of just attack, attack, attack. And so he does.
Yeah, this is an interesting kind of a race that we've got going on here. Mengucci's deck is very single-minded in what it wants to do. It's not as good at blocking as it is simply sticking its creatures into the red zone, and so that's exactly what the Italian does here.
Yeah, and it's still a big swing. Mengucci can pump up the Long Tusk up to a 6/6, so a potential of 9 damage here coming through. With Lu Chao on 13, that's actually quite problematic here, especially with that threat of that Cartouche of Knowledge looming.
Well, even if Andrea Mengucci feeling a little bit uncomfortable in his game, he has got a little bit of solace in that our first game has already come in, and it's come in Italy's favour. Adriano Moscato has already won his first game against Gaotan. That's Ramunap Red taking down game 1 against Blue-White Gift of the God Pharaoh. So Italy beginning to get things going here. We do, of course, also have Mattia Rizzi playing against Liu Yuchen. That's Blue-Black Control versus Ramunap Red. That one, if it goes long, it's probably going Italy's way. If not, well, China have every reason to celebrate.
Yeah, it looks like Lu Chao is going to go for the very conservative play of blocking the Long Tusk and then mowing down the Rogue Refiner and also shooting Andrea Mengucci for 1, because this also enables the Winding Constrictor to attack. And remember, if Lu Chao has some sort of removal spell, that Long Tusk is going to be huge here.
Well, another copy of
Walking Ballista?
Walking Ballista, the pickup. There we go. And again, he gets a chance to cast a Hill Giant that can shoot creatures down with its counters. It's effectively, he's casting a 4-mana Triskelion here with upside.
Yeah. So he's casting the walking ballista here, and if he wants, he can really put some damage on Andrea. Yeah, he goes for it, aggressive. So this time he's using the walking ballista offensively, gets rid of the servant of the conduit. Now Lu Chao has to decide if he wants to attack with just his long tusk up or with the winding constrictor as well. Remember, the doubling of the counter is very effective with the long tusk up. As a 4/4 now, if he activates the ability of the cub, it's going to be a 6/6 and then gain him 3 energy back.
Now, the scary thing here, he has to start looking at his own life total as well and considering what could come from the other side. If the last 2 cards in Andrea Mengucci's hand are a land, so that he's got enough mana to get all this going, and a larger than life, that could just be 10 damage coming through without a reasonable set of blocks on it.
Yeah, so he goes for the super aggressive play. And you know what? I like the way Lu Chao has been playing this game. This man has been a little constrained color-wise. And to be fair, his hand, it's just all creatures. Look at that. Another walking ballista that can finish off the game. Long Tusk Cub, Rogrify, and Scarab God. It's not like he had that many options with regards to spells. Oh, look at that. It's what I talked about.
Here's the Cartouche of Knowledge. Draws a card.
Oh, larger than life. He has the win. He just found both cards, but he doesn't even need larger life because he has the Hashab Oasis. And Andrea Mengucci just stole this one with a huge top deck.
Absolutely gigantic swings there from Andrea Mengucci. This is exactly what Team China was afraid of. They knew that this was going to be a tricky match, and Lu Chao, he decided to go aggressive, and I think that did mean that he had the option of potentially not allowing Andrea Mengucci as many draw steps. It turns out, though, that sometimes you don't need very many draw steps. That Cartouche drawing another pump spell. That pump spell not even needed, though, and big smiles from Andrea Mengucci. He kind of knows that he might have stolen one there.
Yeah, I mean, I think he didn't want to show the large life to not show how lucky he got in this spot and just use the Hashab Oasis just because it was an onboard kill right away. So well done to Italians. I think they're 1-up in all 3 game matches.
Yeah, we've just heard that Mattia Rizzi picked up his game 1. So when you come back after this break, it'll be a matter of whose managed to shuffle fastest, but we will definitely be bringing you plenty more Magic here from our feature match area in this last quarterfinal at the World Magic Cup after these messages.
Grand Prix events offer great experiences for players of all skill levels. These Magic celebrations are headlined by 2-day open tournaments with pro players, feature top artist signings, and host a wide range of side events. Find an upcoming Grand Prix event near you at magic.wizards.com/Grand Prix. Up your game with Ultra Pro Magic the Gathering accessories. Find the best Magic art on card sleeves, deck boxes, playmats, and more. Visit ultrapro.com to learn more and find a retailer near you.
Hello and welcome back to this, the fourth quarterfinal here at our World Magic Cup in Nice, France. And Team Italy absolutely storming away with it in their matchup here against Team China. They have picked up all of their game ones. We have had a win from Mattia Rizzi over Liu Yuchen. We've had a win from Andrea Mengucci over Lu Qiao. And now we're going to get a chance to see game two between Adriano Moscato and Gao Tan. Moscato picking up his game one against Gao Tan, and we're going to get a chance to see where things are going here. Already a lot going on this board. Blue-White Gift has just been able to explode onto this battlefield, but worth noting that that's not due to Godfarrow's Gift being in play. This is simply a matter of Gao Tan having cast a lot of copies of Angel of Invention. Yeah,
and Adriano Moscato, not afraid of all those flying angels. He's just swinging with everything, and he must be getting a little bit desperate here because those Angel of Inventions can really take over the game. Remember, they both pump each other as well as the board. Those servos, they're 3/3s.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this signals that there must be some number of removal spells in Adriano Moscato's hands so that he's going to be killing some number of copies of Angel of Invention this turn, because otherwise this attack just looks crazy.
Yeah, it certainly does seem that way. He might have to sack the Bombat Courier to find one, though, because if we look at Moscato's hand, it's all a bunch of lands. No, there wasn't a Braid, though, that wasn't picked up by our Sparas there. So at least taking care of one of those angels.
And you're right about the Bombat Courier does get sacrificed. Turns out that there's not too much extra help there. So one angel down. This set of attacks, thanks to Prowess, has got a little bit of damage through here. But if you're Gao Tan, after game one, you've got to be feeling fairly happy about how this game two's going.
Yeah, it's not that bad here. Look, still a bunch of servos. There's the Angel of Sanctions, and yeah, China will be very happy to get at least some game wins on the board here very quickly.
And you know that last card in hand for Adriano Moscato is not a burn spell if you're Gao Tan, because there's no way that he would not have allowed to... not have used the opportunity to kill off the second Angel of Sanctions and make that set of attacks a little bit more exciting.
Definitely. And look at the Gao Tan also getting aggressive here with a hostile desert, animating and exiling an irrigated farmland from his grave. And look at the big swing. Angel of Sanctions pumping up everyone there. And I see attack for 14 here. Moscato down to 3, and Gao Tan is going up to 18 very comfortably.
Well, it looks like all of these guys really keen to get to lunch as soon as possible. None of them want these games to last too long, and duly, that seems to be the way it's going. The follow-up play of a Fairgrounds Warden just taking out one copy of the two 1/2s in play for Adriano Moscato, and that the end of our game. Blink and you miss it. China picks up its first game win about on time. Gao Tan squaring things up against Adriano Moscato. And we're going to get a chance to see a little bit more magic from one of our other tables very shortly indeed, Matej Zalkai.
Yeah, I'm really curious about how this matchup is actually playing out, because I've usually seen the blue-white gift deck being on top here, but I'm not surprised that the Ramunap Red managed to steal the game one. Being on the play, such a big advantage for Italy here. And remember, the seeding is very much live here, so Germany might have the advantage in the long term because they were the first seed going to the top 8, so they're going to be on the play in each of the rounds they play.
Now, the interesting thing, of course, about the fact that Italy won all of its game ones is it means the worst case scenario for them, which is China squaring up each of these 3 matchups, they get to be on the play again in all of the deciding games. This is potentially a very big deal indeed. You can see the players there just going to their sideboards, looking at deck lists, because once we get to the top 8, we will get a chance to see them. However, we're not going to watch people sideboarding too much. We're going to be jumping across to our front table, the one that we've not seen any magic from thus far. Mattia Rizzi on the left of our screen. He's up against Liu Yuchen. And on one side of things, we have Ramunap Red in the hands of the Chinese player. However, the deck that Mattia Rizzi's playing, kind of an interesting one, Matej.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit on the desk. The fact that the whole field included only 2 blue-black control players. And they both got into the top 8. Sam Rolfe being the first one, and then Mattia Rizzi is the second one. And his version of the blue-black deck is one that I really quite enjoyed in this particular Team Unified Standard format, because Mattia Rizzi managed to not just play 4 Rascals, he already played 2 Essence Extractions in the main deck, 2 more in his sideboard, as well as some gifted Etherborns. And when I asked them how they feel about this matchup, Mattia was like, yeah, this is the matchup I want to play.
Yes, so much life gain for this blue-black control deck. It's not necessarily something that we always associate with those colors, but you know what? when you put it all together, it does make life a lot more difficult for this red deck, which is very good at dealing 20 damage. But when we're starting to talk about 25 damage, 30 damage, that can be a problem.
Yeah, but to be fair, Liu Chen is on the play this time around, and I think both players have mulligan. Mattia has a bit of a slower hand here. Does have a sensor, disallow double Vraska's Contempt, and a bunch of lands here. So he definitely has a way to catch up once he gets to 4 mana. But Liu Chen is going to try his darnest to deal as much damage possible until then.
Look at these beautiful, unstable mana bases right now. All of these players on just basics, and all of our top 8 are working with basics from the new unset coming out very soon indeed. And you know what? I'm liking what I'm seeing.
Oh yeah, definitely. Unfortunate thing for Liu Chen, he just has 2 of those unstable mountains. No third land here. Only could develop a Soulscar Mage, and Mattia Rizzi quite happy with development here. Cycles a sensor that he deemed not that useful here, and he's gonna be able to leave up Disallow, but taking a bunch of damage from that Karizev and the Soulscar Mage.
Yeah, trading in early damage for stopping late game threats, because if he'd played a Swamp there, then he could potentially have represented an Essence Extraction. I guess that more concerned with there being bigger threats coming along, because last turn Liu Chen only played a 1-drop when he had 2 mana available. That to me signals that there must be some bigger and better things in his hand, and Mattia Rizzi very keen to make sure that they just simply do not happen.
Yeah, and this is one of the things where you think, oh, but the blue-black control deck, he has so much life gain, and it's a burn deck basically, so it's not always that case, because the Ramunap Red deck can really bring in cards like Chandra, Torch of Defiance, Glorybringer. We've saw a bunch of different options here. Look at that Lightning Strike already going to face.
I like this one. It's really asking a question of Mattia Rizzi. He's held up mana for a counterspell. Does he want to use it on a straightforward burn spell to the head? Looks like he does.
Yeah, he looks like he does, because he doesn't want to take 3 from the Lightning Strike and also the Prowess Trigger. He's down to 12 here, and he needs a 4th land to be untapped Black Source just so that he can start playing those Vraska's Contempt. He does have that beautiful, unstable swamp here.
All of these lands illustrated by John Avon, all of them works of art that do not have edges in the way that traditional Magic cards might. And Mattia Rizzi, he had the option of playing a Gifted Aetherworn there, ultimately held all of his mana up. We know that he's got some positive sources of interaction here, including Vraska's Contempt to work with.
Yeah, and he is, now it's going to start be very interesting, because now we're going to see those Vraska's Contempts, and Mattia Rizzi is going to start building up to not just 5 mana, but 6 for Torrential Gearhulk as well. That means more Contempt from Vraska herself. And Liu Chen is doing well to at least try to go wide on this board. PNLR actually being quite annoying, because it's basically 2 creatures for the price of 1.
Yeah, 3 mana for a 2/2. That was a good rate in Alpha, but it hasn't really been for a while since. Now you get a 1/1 on top, and all of those abilities, Gifted Aetherborn coming down on the other side of things, and 2 blue mana being held up. That would have been a great amount of mana to hold up during Alpha. Not quite so many exciting spells that you can cast for blue now that we hit current day standard.
Yeah, but great draw from Liu Chen. I think he drew a Ramunap Ruins, so that's his 4th land, and he has a bunch of options in his hand. He has a Chandra, and I think playing Chandra and minusing her on this board could be very good, but he might just be scared of another sensor from Mattia Rizzi, so we'll see if he decides to risk it here. Okay, he's pointing to that Chandra. He's like, yep, I gotta play it. This is the best play I can do here, and we might see the Planeswalker on the battlefield shortly.
Yeah, we have the whole 3 of each team sat by their teammates here, so there's plenty of opportunities for advice, and Chandra Torch of Defiance does get cast here by Liu Chen. It looks like it's going to be resolving as well. Great news for Team China as they try and get back into this match. We've already seen that Gao Tan has been able to pick up his game 2 over Adriano Moscato in pretty decisive fashion, it must be said, and this is exactly what China needs to do, is to show Italy that it's not a one-way street. It's not just that they get to pick up all of the wins. This is going to be a fight on their hands.
Yeah, now that the Chandra has resolved, Liu Chen has another option. He can plus 4 mana and play the Abrade that he has in his hand. He could also just minus Chandra, but this way he actually gets the card out of his hand. Also pumps its Soulscar Mage additionally, because it was already now 2 prowess triggers, so a bunch of damage coming through, and the Chandra with the more counters on it, the closer we're to an ultimate.
I like everything that's going on from the Chinese side of things. Mattia Rizzi, he's going to have to show off the power of his deck pretty shortly. He has got a Torrential Gearhulk in hand, needs an untapped mana source if he's going to be casting that one. Also, Vraska's Contempt to work with here. So the tools are available to Mattia Rizzi. He just needs to make sure that he has the mana to be able to do things with them, and ultimately chooses to cycle a land at the end of turn to best give him the opportunity to cast... big 6-drop on time, draws Essence Extraction, which is obviously a lovely removal spell here, but there are a lot of different targets he needs to worry about here, and ultimately it is the permanent with the potential for an ultimate there, that being Chandra, that gets exiled. 2 life for Mattia Rizzi, gets rid of an awkward Planeswalker, but that Planeswalker's mum's around, and she's probably not very happy about how that exchange went.
This game's over. Mattia Rizzi was hoping to cycle the tapped land into an untapped land so that he could play a Gearhulk that could block this Hazard that's coming down, but no. And that's it for Italy here.
Great work by China here in making this into a really close match. Liu Yuchen there picking up his game 2 against Mattia Rizzi. And that means that China is looking at doing the perfect comeback sweep here, putting us into game 3s across the board. Just one more game 2 to be played here in our feature match area, and that to be the one between Andrea Mengucci and Lu Chao. Lu Chao looked in fantastic shape for almost the entirety of game 1, but you know what? It doesn't matter how much you're winning mid-game if you don't ultimately win the game, and it was Andrea Mengucci who was able to draw the key Cartouche of Knowledge, that plus a pump spell, just enough to mean that Italy able to win that first game on the middle table. We're going to get a chance to see whether or not Mengucci can do the same as he hits game 2.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how this game plays out after sideboarding, because you would think that the Sultai Energy deck can just start bringing in more removal spells and try to make sure that it doesn't die to the Electrostatic Pummeler. But Andrea Mengucci is going to bring in some sweet cards of his own for this matchup, and yeah, I'm really keen to see Andrea just navigate this. It's definitely going to be a lot of fun.
Well, turn 1 Attune with Ether is part of the absolute best start that Sultai Energy can have. The turn 1 Attune with Ether, turn 2 Long Tusk Cub, turn 3 Winding Constrictor, plus maybe something, is basically the gold standard for what the Sultai deck can do in terms of piling on the damage early. Now, Andrea Mengucci, he's off to a very, very similar start on the other side of things. He doesn't obviously fetch a swamp. He doesn't really need that black mana so much, but ultimately, he can use that energy almost as well as Sultai Energy can, and if he gets an Electrostatic Pummeler, there's an argument to say much better.
Yeah, definitely, and please remember that this is Team Unified Standard, so the players really had to make some concessions. But I like what Italy basically did here. They just said, okay, Adriano Moscato, you're going to run Ramunap Red, you can have all the cards you want, you have no limitations, and then the green-blue Pummeler in the middle as the energy deck, and blue-black control on the Acid by Mattia Rizzi. Very impressive way they've set it up, and it's been working wonders for them. And even though we see no creatures on either side here, this is quite unusual.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that I like about the way that Team Italy has thrown things together in terms of their decks here, and this is not so relevant in this top 8 where there are deck lists, but must have been a big deal in the Swiss, is that if you look at these first few lands and spells coming from Andrea Mengucci, this is just a Sultai Energy deck. There's no signs that it could be anything but that. And so there's definitely the potential to just outmaneuver your opponent because they simply don't realize what you're doing until it's too late.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm pretty sure that the team just didn't practice against Pummeler decks or even blue-black control. Blue-black control was something that we saw come out of the World Championship early in the format, but as the format has matured, people have been steering away from it because it can be difficult to play. That's one thing, and the energy decks are somewhat well positioned against them if they want to.
So here comes a Dai Young from Lu Chao. Net evens on energy, generates some, but some of it having to be spent to kill off that Rogue Refiner.
Yeah, but now Andrea must be decently happy with the way this game has been going because Lu Chao has no pressure of his own, and now Andrea Mengucci has the option of either playing a Bristling Hydra or even another Rogue Refiner with already some backup. He has both Dive Down and Blossoming Defense in his hand ready to go, and if he's not under pressure, he can be the aggressive deck himself with plenty of energy to spare. Yeah,
I mean, it's a strange one that Andrea Mengucci, if the board is empty but he's got a happy amount of energy, that's pretty good. He knows that he can potentially just be cashing in all of that energy for one big attack a little bit later on. So this works out perfectly fine for him, and he's carefully considering what he wants to do here. Plays another one of those unstable forests.
Yeah, goes to the Refiner, which is interesting here because he might be respecting the fact that Lu Chao has an Essence Scatter. Because remember, both players have each other's deck lists, but Lu Chao only has one, actually. So quite a bit of a heads-up play for Andrea there. But still, playing this way is also very much fine because he goes up to 6 energy and he can still represent the Blossoming defense that he actually has. So if Lu Chao wants to kill the Rogue Refiner, Andrea can protect it.
Interestingly, looking at those unstable lands, typically they don't have borders. On Lu Chao's side of the table, they kind of do because he's running sleeves that have sort of little gold filigree edges to them that make all of his cards look just a little bit more magical as Rogue Refiner comes down for Lu Chao to square up the Rogue Refiner fight on this board.
And Lu Chao also has some good follow-up as well. He has the duress, so he'll finally have a good look at what Andrea Mengucci is doing. And look at that, Cartouche of Knowledge.
Cartouche of Knowledge, Dive Down, and a Blossoming Defense, the 3 options for duress. Also gets to see Bristling Hydra and some land there. So there's a lot of good things going on. There's not an electrostatic pummeler just yet. But when you see that amount of evasion and pump as well, I mean, a Bristling Hydra that can fly is also a pretty big problem.
Yeah, and I'm going to pop up the hand for Lu here. Once Andrea Mengucci slams down that Bristling Hydra, look at Lu's hand. He has removal spells, but those can't really do anything about the Bristling Hydra. So Andrea Mengucci should be sitting pretty if he just goes with the Hydra here. And it would have been even better if he had played it on his own turn.
As it turns out, yeah. I mean, it's the sort of thing that I'm sure that there was a temptation for Mengucci to keep his mana up, be able to potentially thwart a bit of removal with Blossoming Defense. But now he's lost the Cartouche of Knowledge. He's not going to have a Flying Hydra anymore. He's just going to have to power on through on the ground. Now, he can certainly do that, but in terms of the straightforward path to victory, maybe a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, now Andrea can also try to maybe force the trade of the Refiners, because Lu Chao, we know he has all spells in his hand. I don't think he's that keen to trade off right away here. He might just get some time to get going and draw something big of his own. We'll see if he takes it here. He does. He goes for it right away. And Andrea sees that there's not that much going on for Lu Chao, and with the way he tapped out and with the access to black mana he had to, I like the fact that Mengucci is just being aggressive, and he also, he has those double hash of Oasis. He can do a lot of damage with the Bristling Hydra, and now also with the Rogue Refiner that survived that combat step.
10 energy for this Bristling Hydra. This is a Bristling Hydra ready to fight, and I'm sure that we're going to see Andrea Mengucci sending it into the red zone quite a bit in these coming turns, as the pickup for Lu Chao is a Long Tusk Cub, so he will have at least one blocker to work with. Unfortunately, all of that removal in his hand. Firstly, the costing on it doesn't necessarily play too nicely with what he's got going on. Secondly, though, he just needs to get creatures on the board. He needs to get threats to have some kind of ability to either block or to be able to maybe launch an attack at some point in this game.
Yeah, so the Long Tusk Cub can grow up to a 4/4, which is not really well matched on this board with the Bristling Hydra. And another Rogue Refiner for Andrea is also great. It can just keep the cards flowing for him and make his board that wider. And gaining the energy is also very important so that he can not just pump up the Bristling Hydra, but also protect it from all of those removal spells in Lu Chao's hand.
Yeah, it's worth considering the final 3 points of energy is almost being kind of put aside for a rainy day, just in case that Bristling Hydra desperately needs hexproof. The other ones might get spent just to shorten the clock on Lu Chao just a little bit. Though, with a dive down in hand, it may be that Andrea Mengucci gets a little bit more aggressive with that energy and just tries to force through even more damage if he thinks he sees an opening.
Yeah, on the other hand, Lu Chao knows about dive down, so he'll be very careful in playing around it. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how this is going to play out in the end. Look, Andrea Mengucci is being very aggressive here. Look at that. He pumps up his Rogue Refiner and swings in with both creatures. Remember, the Desert gives +3/+3. That's a 6/5 Refiner. So there's no good blocks for Lu Chao here.
He's going to be taking 10 if he's not willing to just throw this Long Tusk Cub under the bus. And that's before we worry about all of the energy available to Andrea Mengucci.
I love the aggressiveness of Andrea here. He senses weakness from Lu Chao, who just hasn't played any big creatures, any relevant creatures on this board, and just starts to get aggressive with his Hashabo aces. And he knows he's in a good spot here, and I would say he's firmly in advantage here.
Yeah, last game we saw Andrea Mengucci pushing through attacks in what seemed to be a losing position, which ultimately set him up for a big win. And here he's kind of just pushing the tempo while he has the advantage on the battlefield. And yeah, there just has to be a big block here coming from that Long Tusk Cub.
Yeah, this line looked like a weird block, but basically Lu Chao is just forcing Andrea to use his energy by investing his own into a Long Tusk Cub. So, this might seem like, okay, so he's just trying to waste some energy. The other fact why he's doing that, because he wants to trigger a revolt. He actually wants his Long Tusk Cub to die so that he could, after combat, use Fatal Push to kill off that Rogue Refiner.
Yeah, he's got to do what he can to keep this board under control. And what he can is pretty good, but at the same time, he is going to be taking a pretty hefty amount of damage and being left facing down a big bristling Hydra with no creatures on this battlefield.
Andre could also protect his Rogue Refiner with the dive down, but then Lu Chao could then start using Rask's Contempt not just to kill creatures but gain some life back. So Andre might let that resolve here. He certainly must be wondering, okay, why is he playing the Fatal Push here? He knows that I have dive down, so the wheels are surely turning in his head, trying to figure out, okay, so he probably wants to untap. Maybe he has another removal spell. That would be pretty obvious for him. So he just has to figure out if dive down is what he wants to play here.
Well, we've got some three-headed giant games going on. Our other games all on pause right now, which means that Andrea Mengucci is getting the full benefit of input from Mattia Rizzi and Adriano Moscato. Mengucci described his team as being young in years, but not in cards. These guys, they're having fun here in Nice, but when it comes to these games, they're all business. And right now, business is booming. They have made it through to this top 8 with relative aplomb, and in this quarterfinals match, already doing all right, picking up their game ones across the board, but they really want to see their captain here take down this match, just take a little bit of the pressure off and mean that they only need to win one of the 2 deciding games on either side in order to be able to advance to the semifinals.
It's already a huge thing for Italy. I mean, they're not back-to-back. They're back-to-back-to-back top 8ers at the World Magic Cup, winning 2 years ago, finishing 3rd last year, and now they're doing pretty well to at least repeat that feat from last year. So, and a huge respect out to Andrea Mengucci, who just makes it work with any squad available to him.
Yeah, he's a great communicator, a very friendly guy, and a very, very smart Magic player. And all of those things working in concert here to mean that Team Italy doing a fantastic job once again at the World Magic Cup. Just a fantastic performance from these guys.
Yeah. And now in a very good shape here for the Italians here. A Walking Ballista. I'm pretty sure what the Walking Ballista is going to do is block the Bristling Hydra and then shoot down the Rogue Refiner as acting as a sort of fog. Lu Chao's hand is just too expensive for what he wants to do here. And look at that. A blossoming defense from Andrea Mengucci could also be very good here.
I mean, Lu Chao already knew about the second Hashab Oasis, so it could be that Andrea Mengucci leads off with essentially doing the exact same thing that he did last turn.
Absolutely.
And that already looks pretty good.
Yeah, and look, he's lining it up very similar here. He might start off with a Rogue Refiner as well. He has that for a while, and he's definitely playing another Refiner would be good here too, because it's just another big creature for the board. Getting him up to 6 energy, which is great because he can protect his Bristling Hydra twice potentially. And we'll just see what he does here. So the Hashab Oasis play will be available to him for next turn.
And there has been an electrostatic pummeler sighted for the first time in this match. Andrea Mengucci picking it up off the Rogue Refiner. It's not necessarily that he use it in this particular board state. It might be that he can just lean on the Hydra he already has going, get that Rogue Refiner stuck into the red zone as well, whittle down Lu Chao's life such that he doesn't necessarily need to go all in on one big attack and risk any kind of removal on the other side of things, or perhaps a concert of removal spells. One way or another, though, so many different ways that Andrea Mengucci can pose problems for Lu Chao here. Drops the electrostatic pummeler, gains even more energy here. Now, yes, he is tapped out. that does mean that there's a little window of opportunity for Lu Chao to remove something. But that something, at best, is going to be Electrostatic Pummeler, because Bristling Hydra, it still has plenty of energy to shield itself with Hexproof. And unfortunately, Bristling Hydra might be good enough even if the Pummeler does have to hit the Grumper.
The thing is, for Lu Chao, if he goes for the Vasquez Contempt here, he'll survive a bit longer, but Andrea Mangucci will just have so much damage on the backswing, nearly lethal. Lu Chao definitely, the 2-life from Vasquez Contempt will be relevant here, but he has to go for it on his own turn. He cannot risk just playing it on Andrea Mangucci's turn and having it be essentially countered by a blossoming defense that we know that Andrea Mangucci actually has in his hands. So I think the Chinese players are going to agree that Vasquez Contempt at sorcery speed is the right play.
And you can kind of see there's some shaking just off the edge of the table. Andrea Mangucci, anticipation is very much the watchword for him. He just a few turns away potentially from getting the first match win of this quarterfinal, and he would very much like to lead his team to further World Magic Cup success. He's lost his Electrostatic Pummeler, but still has a lot of attackers. At the moment, already that Bristling Hydra, 6 power, 9 power with the Rogue Refiner, 12 power with all of that energy. If he had just one more point of power, because remember that there's also
he does have lethal. He does have lethal here, because Lu Chao is leaving up only a forest. And remember, he has the +3, he has 9 in play, Hash Up Oasis, that makes it 12, Blossoming Defense makes it 14, and 2 pumps of the Bristling Hydra would make it 16. And he's actually, Andrea Mangucci seems to be going for it. Swing with everything.
You can see there, Lu Chao almost completely motionless, and he's counting it up. All of these players, there are 6 sets of eyeballs from these 2 teams adding it up. Those are the remaining points. Blossoming Defense, and Team China has to scoop up their cards. There's the handshake. Italy picking up their first win here in this quarterfinals.
Yeah, now match point for Italy, because it's 1 game apiece in A and C seats. So now they just have to figure out how are they going to win just 1 game out of 2.
They have a myriad of options. It's all going to depend on which match we start with here, and it looks like we're going to see Mattia Rizzi up against Liu Yuchen on our front table. So just as a reminder, this is blue-black control against Ramunap Red, and here Team Italy on the play. Let's have a look at how these hands look, see if we've got one player who's got off to the best early start. Bomac Courier coming down for Liu Yuchen, so a potential source of card advantage for him, but we know that this blue-black control deck, a little unusual. There are both many life game options in addition to the regular counter magic suite that you might expect from a control deck. Will Mattia Rizzi be able to hold off the early threats long enough to be able to leverage all of that power?
Yeah, Bomac Courier is a great turn 1 play, though. It does put the pressure on the blue-black control decks, not due to the damage, but mainly due to the fact that it's just potentially a lot of card advantage in the late game, and that's something that the blue-black control definitely doesn't want to see, because that late game from the Ramunap Red deck, with all those Ramunap Ruins just going at your face, is just really annoying for them.
So Bomac Courier has successfully attacked in for 2 turns in a row. That Earthshaker Kenra stopped by a sensor, though. And Mattia Rizzi, he's hitting his land drops. That's step 1 for any control deck. He now has Disallow up and potentially Essence Scatter if he decides that that's going to be a more mana-efficient thing to be doing. At this point, all he needs to worry about is the threats that are currently on the board, or, I guess, an explosion of 1-drops from the Chinese player here.
Yeah, we'll see, though, because Mattia Rizzi, I don't think he has a 4th land, and he might just have to start countering these small early jobs. And Liu Chen leading off with a small Soul Scar Mage, maybe with a follow-up 2-drop. I do see quite a bit of burn in Liu Chen's hand, which is good in the abstract, but not when your opponent has a bunch of counter magic and maybe he maybe stumbling on mana.
It's an interesting one, because if this Soul Scar Mage is simply putting Mattia Rizzi in a difficult spot of, I'm going to cast 2 or 3 threats this turn and you can only realistically counter 1 of them, that's great for Liu Chen. If it's, I've got this 1-drop and that's about it, well, maybe not so much.
Yeah, and there's one hidden thing about Disallow could potentially counter the Bomac Courier, which already has 3, the ability, has 3 cards underneath, and that's probably what Mattia Rizzi is eyeing. Look at that, no 4th land, just another Essence Scatter for the Italian. And while he was feeling quite confident in his matchup, this is falling to pieces a little bit too quickly here, especially as Liu Chen can just start pointing burn spells at Mattia Rizzi's face.
Tough spot here. It's hard to say that it's a strong advantage in either direction this early in the game. But you know what? When a control deck starts missing its land drops, that definitely a problem. And if you're looking for decks to punish missing land drops, there are few better than these red decks.
Yeah, but now Liu Chen has another land in play, has plenty of options still. He actually elected not to cast a Lightning Strike on the end of turn previously, because that would just mean that he's tapped out, and if his opponent had then killed the Bomat Courier, he wouldn't get all those sweet cards underneath.
So Hieroglyph Illumination there, the pickup for Mattia Rizzi. We might well see that one cycled here. It's at least it would mean that Essence Scatter still potentially an option for the Italian player, whose draws thus far have not been especially exciting in this deciding game against Ramunap Red.
And here come the Lightning Strikes. No Cyclone, the Illumination to find land, though. He wants to leave up that disallow mana. I would say that the Chinese team are doing pretty well here. Karizev joins the fray.
Yeah, the first 7 damage has come pretty free and easy. Bomat Courier getting to get stuck in a number of times now. A lot of cards now under the little mailbug.
Yeah, and this is now the kind of like the perfect spot where he can play Karizev. He still has Lightning Strike mana up, and he can still sacrifice the Bomat Courier with now being low on cards. Essentially not a problem with a Bomat Courier. How much is it? 5 now?
Now, the cool thing is that here, he's got enough mana that he could throw a Lightning Strike and then look at his hand, decide the rest of his hand's not that exciting, and cash in for 5 cards if he so chose. However, Bomat Courier is still attacking in, and until Mattia Rizzi finds a way of dealing with it, it's pretty tempting to just let it pile on up.
Yeah, but now it looks like the Liu Chen is just taking advantage of the fact that Mattia Rizzi is tapped low to just point the Lightning Strike at Rizzi and get 5 new cards. And yeah, I mean, finding a few lands among those shouldn't be a problem. There's an Earthshaker Kenner in the graveyard that can come back. And I think he found an Ethersphere Harvester and a Rampaging Froststone too.
All right, well, Mattia Rizzi has found his 3rd and has found his 4th land, and that means that there's a little bit more going on for him. In principle, he can start building up on this pipe dream of potentially casting a Torrential Gearhulk at some point. 9 life, though, not a lot to be working with against a red deck that's got a lot of cards in hand. That was a gigantic Bomat Courier activation. So many cards to work with, so many lands to work with for Liu Chen. He's already got 2 Ramunap Ruins and another Desert in play, so that's a virtual 6 damage that will not be able to be countered by Mattia Rizzi. The best he can do is try and gain a bit of life to get out of that hole. And if you want to gain life, there's one card that is in the format that says, no, that's not going to work for you, and it's just come down for Liu Chen.
Yeah, there's the Essence Scatter on the Frostodon.
Well, that's fine against the first Rampaging Frostodon. Is there enough mana for another Essence Scatter? Does he have another Essence Scatter? Because there's definitely another Rampaging Frostodon in hand for Liu Chen here.
Well, we'll see soon enough. Does that get... Oh, the 3rd Essence Scatter. Wow.
All right, Mattia Rizzi's starting to get somewhere here. That was a key turn for him. If he had let either of those 2 resolve, he would have been in all sorts of trouble. Still missing land drops. Just a draw and a very, very quick pass from Mattia Rizzi, who is basically still sitting on counter magic. He's trying to play it like old school Tempest control decks. Meanwhile, Liu Chen, old school Tempest red decks, and the red decks were very good in that format, as I recall.
Yeah, I mean, the new age decks certainly have some card advantage in the form of Bomat Courier and some expensive play. It's no Cursed Scroll, but a bunch of good creatures here for Liu Chen still available here. Just Kenra from hand, not even from the graveyard just yet. And Mattia Rizzi, this is a creature that's very awkward to counter.
Yes, the reason that it's awkward to counter, of course, because of that Eternalize ability. 6 mana to exile it from your graveyard and create a token that's a copy of it that's a 4/4 with all the same abilities and so on and so forth. But Eternalize, you can't counter it. At least you can't counter it with regular counter magic. You can start throwing disallows at that Eternalize ability, but at some point your disallows are getting fairly heavily taxed in this matchup. Yeah,
and here comes an Ethersphere Harvester. This is a strange one because it can be pretty problematic when you don't have creature. It just sits there and just doesn't do anything. And ideally, Mattia Rizzi wants Liu Chen just to have no creatures as much as possible. He does find the 5th land here. The one problem for Mattia Rizzi in this game, and it's the reason why I'm going to put the advantage bar very much in Liu Chen's favor, is that Liu Chen has a lot of lands, amongst them hidden in the middle. There's Scavenging Grounds.
Yeah, Scavenging Grounds, the ability to get rid of graveyards at a moment's notice, assuming you've got a couple of mana and a Desert Sacrifice, is that, yeah, Torrential Gearhulk at that point, it's just a big flashy creature. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But on the other side of things,
Yeah.
He really needs to be extracting value here because he's lost so much value in this early game. He's now at 5 life and having to worry about every single point of damage that's coming through. There's already 2 Ramunap ruins and another desert in play for Liu Chen. If nothing else happens in this game, there's enough mana available to Liu Chen that he can just, over 3 successive turns, be throwing deserts at his opponent's face. Never needs an attack step, never needs anything else going on. This is a big, big problem for Mattia Rizzi.
Yeah, Mattia Rizzi now had the prime opportunity to draw a 6th land and play a Torrential Gearhulk with Scavenger Grounds being tapped and unable to be used, but he didn't find it. He did find an Essence Extraction, which could be nice, but I think Liu Chen is already preparing a Hazoret, the Fervent, from his hand while leaving up mana for the Scavenger Grounds, if that were not to be enough to win right away here.
It looks like there may be some pressure on Adriano Moscato because Andrea Mengucci, while he's picked up his win, it looks very much like we're going to see China able to square things up entirely in this matchup, and we will be going down to a deciding game in the entire quarterfinals here between Italy and China here at the World Magic Cup. Gigantic swings coming through, and there is the Essence Extraction. So that's going to be able to put Mattia Rizzi up to 8, but 5 damage coming through here from the big god. 3 life remaining, 2 Ramunap ruins, and oh wow!
No, he just has it. Yes.
Sunscorched Desert, that deals 1 point of damage. Ramunap ruins does a little bit more. That enough for the handshake. Congratulations for China. They have forced a deciding game here, and we're going to see a little bit more three-headed giant as each of these teams squares up to watch one final game and try and find a way of eking their way through to a semi-final here at the World Magic Cup. Electric magic that we're seeing here.
Yeah, what an effort from the Chinese team, as they've lost all game 1s in all 3 tables, and they've clawed their way back into a game 3, match 3 decider.
Psychologically, so tough to be that far down after the first 3 games. Normally in Team Magic, you lose your game 1 and you're like, well, I've got teammates, they can help me out. But when all of your teammates lose their game 1s as well, suddenly you can't help but avoid the fact that your entire team needs to win all of their remaining games if you're going to win this match. And this is so close now. We are going to see one more game. It's going to be Adriano Moscato against Gao Tan. The matchup is Ramunap Red for Italy, Blue-White Gift for China. We've seen it go both ways in this feature match area. And right now, whichever way it goes, that will be the team that we get to see in more elimination play here at the World Magic Cup.
A big advantage to the Italians, though, because they're on the play for game 2. But a very strong start from Gao Tan. Turn 1 Minister of Inquiries is where you want to be.
Minister of Inquiries is just one of the pieces that really holds together this entire deck. It's something to do on turn 1. It lets you get lots of cards into your graveyard if left to do its thing. And once you've got lots of cards in graveyard, that's when Godfarer's Gift really shines. You get the key cards, including the gift itself, into the graveyard. Refurbish gets it back. Then you start reanimating big creatures that you have no business getting in play that early. And, well, everything starts just sort of magically working out. Meanwhile, Adriano Moscato here getting down Karizev Skyship Raider. That one, a problematic attacker. It obviously creates Ragavan, the red monkey token, when it attacks. But First Strike and Menace also make blocking a little bit fiddly.
Yeah, and speaking of making blocking fiddly, Adriano Moscato is already preparing his Uncrop Crasher to get the damage rolling for the Italian team. And Chandra picked up as well here. Adriano Moscato seems to have a lot of good cards in his hand to get going. And Scavenger Grounds, it might seem like a very unassuming play here, but this could be big.
Scavenger Grounds, yeah, we've seen it do good work for the Chinese side of things against Control, and here against the Godfarer's Gift deck, if anything, arguably even better, because while you have that desert on the battlefield and the mana to activate it, you can just take all of that hard work done by the likes of Minister of Inquiries and just get rid of it all in one go. Exile those graveyards.
Yeah, and Uncrop Crusher comes in, no exert, not needed. The Minister is just a lowly 1/2. It could at best trade profitably with Ragavan or prevent some damage. And now Gao Tan has to decide what he wants to do. His hand seems fairly slow. Look at that. Fairgrounds Warden will be a nice play for the following turn, but only a cast out and a bunch of lands here. Quite poor from the Chinese team here if they want to clinch it to the semifinals.
Yeah, Gao Tan having to rely on Ipnu Rivulet to get cards into the graveyard. Not quite as exciting as using the Minister of Inquiries to do so. But as you so rightly say, Matej, there's really not any exciting blocks here for this Minister, in spite of the fact that Uncrop Crasher has offered the Chinese team the opportunity to throw the 1-drop in the way of one of these creatures. Yep, simply takes his damage. That's 6 coming through. Gautan on 14. Doesn't take too many attacks like that for Italy to just take this down. And it may well be that Adriano Moscato, if he sees scary-looking cards in the graveyard from Gautan, he can just leave his mana up, save his scavenging grounds, and use the creatures he already has on the battlefield to achieve a lot of what he needs to.
Yeah, we saw it in game 2, right? Angel of Inventions ×2, just firmly taking over the game for the Chinese player. And look, he's already slow rolling those cards here because he's desperate for some action. He might slow the bleeding with the Fairgrounds Warden here, but he might have to hit a very good Minister of Inquiries mill.
It's really tricky. He's drawn the refurbish, so in principle, he could set up for a gigantic turn 4 here against all odds, but it's really going to come down to what Adriano Moscato wants to do on this turn. If he decides that he wants to play a land and maybe cast Chandra, for example, which in abstract, a very powerful play, it does mean that Scavenging Grounds isn't going to do anything, and it potentially gives Gautan an out to just get everything going in one fell swoop here, though it must be said it would require quite a fortunate activation of that Minister.
Yeah, very much so. In an ideal world, God Pharaoh's Gift, Angel of Invention, and maybe something like a Champion of Wits, because he did indeed find that refurbish. Also as a cast out, as an option for the following turn if he doesn't get the good mill right away. So and now the Italians have a lot of options themselves because they have Chandra, they have Lightning Strike, they have Glorybringer. What are we going to see here? It's going to be +4 mana, it looks like.
And that means that Lightning Strike gets back Karizev. So plenty of creatures suddenly on the battlefield for Adriano Moscato, who again attacks in. Again, no exert. He's quite happy to have Minister of Impediments dealt with here.
Yeah, he's saving up potentially for the Uncrop Crasher to do some damage on the following turn if there's something happening. And look at that Gautan. So this is a huge mill. Does he find that God Pharaoh's Gift?
I mean, at least now with the Minister of Inquiries blocking, if he just finds God Pharaoh's Gift and not a creature, there's more creatures in the graveyard, but absolutely nothing off that Minister of Inquiries activation. Absolutely gigantic. 3 lands in the graveyard alongside the Minister itself as it dies to Uncrop Crasher. Gautan protecting his life total where he can. Draws a card for the turn. More lands. Sacred Cat is the creature that he has going for him.
And that cat is not going to be long for this world, it seems. And Gautan, again, a big decision here. He can maybe go for a cast out on the Chandra, but if he does, he's taking a lot of damage yet again. And he could deploy the Sacred Cat, but we know very well that if Adriano Moscato doesn't want the Sacred Cat to block, he has the Uncrop Crasher at the ready. So I think the Italians are very close to clinching another semi-final finish, at least.
It's so funny, this blue-white gift deck, it's one of the ones that I'm always the most reticent about moving the advantage bar around too much for, because we've seen it produce some incredible comebacks. If you can get to that key combination of Angel of Invention plus a God Pharaoh's Gift in play, then suddenly it's amazing how quickly games can turn around. The amount of life gain that affords, just fantastically huge in this matchup. But on the face of things right now, a lot of things need to go right for Gautan if he's going to maneuver his way into that position. Plays the Ipnu Rivulet for the turn, passes things back. He's still got the opportunity at playing Cast Out at a moment's notice thanks to the flash on that enchantment. But meanwhile, everything in Adriano Moscato's court here.
Yeah, now Adriano actually, he has options, he has time. If he's scared of that refurbish maybe doing anything, he also has the option of just leaving up mana with the Scavenger Grounds. Chandra is still in the battlefield. It can be used for mana or for cards or damage, any of these. And I think at this point, cards, damage, it all just seems great to me.
There's a Glorybringer in Adriano Moscato's hand as well, so if he wants to push damage, the amount of damage that he's pushing through here is substantial. The fact that there's been a pass on this turn may signal to Team Italy that they might be having to think about a cast out, and that being the case, they would much rather that this Chandra gets cast out, given that they have another copy in hand, than, for example, a Glorybringer that they spend a large amount of their resources to cast this turn.
You know, it's a big turn, definitely. it's a tough situation, but I think they're just going to go without deploying the Glorybringer. They might be a little bit scared here for all the options that are at Gautan's disposal here, and just to swing with the Karizev and the Anchor Crasher. And now Gautan has to decide what does he want to cast out. Remember, the Italians did not use Chandra pre-combat, so this could be a good point to get rid of Chandra, and Gautan decides to do so.
Now, this has kind of played right into Italy's hands here. They took a shot. They had to decide what they felt was best based on the pass with no mana up, and it meant that they have been able to cast this Chandra after combat and not have a sort of an awkward moment where maybe they didn't get as much out of the cards in their hand as they might have.
Yeah, the big important thing is now that they're not scared of actually tapping out for a thread like Chandra after post-combat, because now they know that Gautan cannot do put some cards into his graveyard and cast a Refurbish. He can only do one of those things, so that means that they know they will have at least one extra turn, and that extra turn means that they will not only be able to pressure the Gautan and his teammates here, but also leave up the Scavenger Grounds, and I think Italy's very close here.
Yeah, these draws from the blue-white gift deck in this deciding game have not been as exciting as Team China, I'm sure, would have hoped. Minister of Inquiries has not really helped at all thus far beyond a sacrificial block at one point. Sacred Cat coming along now alongside another Minister of Inquiries. Gautan trying to put the shields up as best he can, but to be quite honest, there's a lot of different things that need to be shielded against at this point. Another land here from Adriano Moscato.
No, he could have at least, if he hadn't played the Sacred Cat, he could have at least represented Settle the Wreckage that he actually has in his sideboard as a one-off. But at this point, I think with the Glorybringer and the Anchor Crasher Exert together with the Chandra, I think the Italians just they're pointing to that Glorybringer and it's like, yeah, guys, I think we can do it here.
And the big dragon, it's just lurking on the edge of being played here. You can see a lot of gestures from the Italian team. Adriano Moscato, he's the one holding the cards, but he's got Mattia Rizzi and Andrea Mengucci providing their input too. Here comes the dragon. No responses from China, and Italy, get ready for the reaction shot. These guys not backward about coming forward when it comes to the big celebrations. Gigantic swings here. A couple of different options for exerting. One creature getting killed off. One creature is not going to be able to block. There's the handshake, and Italy are through to our semi-finals here at the World Magic Cup.
Fantastic for Italy. Their third World Magic Cup top 8 in a row, and also their third semi-finals in a row, at least. And I'm just curious if they can do it again. They've won in 2015, stumbled last year in the semis, but their squad seems so good. Look at how happy Mattia Rizzi is here.
Mattia Rizzi had to be pretty pleased because he was the only player in that round to pick up a loss, and he's got to have been sweating there that maybe he was the reason that there was going to be some sort of an upset potentially for Italy. Of course, Italy, we've seen Andrea Mengucci talking all week about how happy he is with his team, happy he is with the team energy, the level of play, the decks that they've chosen. Everything's been coming up Italy all weekend. And you know what? The weekend is not over. We are going to see some more from Italy in our semi-finals. So much great magic in all of these quarterfinals. We have our Final Four set. Do not go anywhere because the World Magic Cup only gets more electric from here. Back to the news desk.
Hello and welcome back to the news desk. Well, the quarterfinals are in the books for the World Magic Cup. On to the semifinals after we have a brief lunch break. If you haven't been with us for the entire morning, let's go through the bracket and see how things shook out all morning long here in Nice, France. So our first quarterfinal featured Germany and Slovakia, and you were in the booth for this, Simon Gertzen. How did this match shake out?
I was in the booth for this, and Slovakia and Germany had a pretty hard-fought battle in the center, with Mark Tobias playing against Ivan Floch, the two most decorated players on the teams and also the captains. Ivan Floch managed to win that one. It was an energy control mirror. But on the other two tables, Germany's aggressive strategies, Ramunap Red and Mardu Vehicles on the same team, managed to take the wins.
And that was kind of a strategy that we weren't entirely expecting coming into this tournament, having both of those decks, which sometimes need to overlap cards just a little bit. What do you make of their decision?
It paid off tremendously. It's also something where Mark can be in the center and somehow look at both of these tables and somehow help the aggressive players make the right choices. I think that was a really smart choice, but I wouldn't have even considered not playing Bomart Career in Mardu Vehicles, for example.
Okay, Wales against Poland were up next. Again, you were in the booth. Simon, a quick recap of that, if you would.
I had Poland as my favorites because they did seem like the more experienced squad, and the deciding match was Piotr Goglowski on blue-white cycling with his Drake Havens, and once those resolve, he was facing blue-black control. Once a Drake Haven hits the battlefield, it's almost impossible for blue-black control to win.
Drakes versus Dragons, and the Drakes come out on top. Up next was Japan versus Austria. Here, how did this match figure out there, Simon?
So Austria and Japan had almost the same lineup, and kind of the lineup that was expected at this tournament. Ramunap Red, Energy, and a blue-white deck. And from the way the matchup looked, it looked like everything would be great for Austria, but they were up against Japan, tremendous players. Sultai Energy with mono red somehow winning from a position where you would say, oh, the early game didn't really go his way, and
right.
Now his opponent is still at 20.
I got here a little late, and I just kept seeing stuff on Twitter where Shota's playing mono red control. So I assume that he found his way through. Huh?
Yeah, just a little bit. You know, in that sweet spot between turns 9 and 14. You know, as Ramunap Red
where
does.
the red deck loves to thrive.
That's right. Where it lives.
But we're talking about a control master, and he knows not only how to win with control, but also what makes control decks sweat, what makes it most difficult. Exactly.
I just want to point out, too, when I was watching Shota pilot this deck earlier this weekend, he was playing it at a breakneck pace. It was almost like he was just like, he could have been asleep and won with this deck. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, and then finally, of course, we had Italy against China. We've just seen Italy advance to the semi-finals. So Rizzi, Mengucci and Moscato join Japan, Poland and Germany in the final four. So that's about 20-25 minutes away. Semi-final one will be Germany against Poland. Then we have Japan against Italy. But now, as we come to the end of 2017, it's time for the Coverage Awards.